Okay, hello everybody. Welcome to Korean Atlanta Mentorship. And in this video, we're just going to do another velocity banking review. Before we get started, let me just tell you a story, actually from yesterday. I had a meeting with a nurse, right? And I showed her, because she told me she wants to learn real estate investing. So yeah, I'll show you that. But let me show you this thing called velocity banking first. And this nurse has had her career for I think about at least 20 something years working, right? And owned two homes, didn't pay off any of them, right? And I showed her the strategy, and then I showed her the demonstrations I always do, like, oh, if you're negative $110 of savings, do you need to make more money? And she was like, yeah, of course you do. And it's like, what? Take a look at this, and then I love the going from negative 100 whatever to $5,000, and then I showed her, yeah, if you know how to do this, then you could be debt free, or I mean mortgage free in about less than 4 years. And she bought a home in 2017, and I think a lot of thoughts were going through her head about, man, I probably could have had both of my houses paid off like probably 7 years ago. You know, Again, it's like, wait a minute, what? You ever have those thoughts? And I never had those thoughts because when I first learned velocity banking, I was only making 20 grand a year and I was flat broke. But then that was 7, 8 years ago. But I know some of you probably were in a much better position than I was when I first learned it. But it's all good. It's all good. All right, so let's go ahead and do start off with another review of velocity banking. So what is velocity banking? All it is a debt payoff strategy using your line of credit as your main operating account. So what is a line of credit? All it is a financial tool where you could borrow money, pay it back, and use it over and over again. Now, here's the secret about getting lines, oodles and oodles of lines of credit, right? You see this 15 grand personal line of credit, $280,000 home equity line of credit. The secret to it is you actually need to get it before you ever need it, right? Say that all the time. Banks don't lend money to people who need it. And so some people are watching these videos and like, well, I'm in this situation right now. And again, you might get really lucky because even though you might be in all of this debt, right, you might have a line of credit like this one where it's like filled to the max and you probably got it before you need it. But some people are like, man, who's going to have a line of credit available, when we're all in this debt? But that's the thing, you should learn this strategy before you even get into debt like I did, right? I made $20,000 a year when I first learned this. So I was like, when am I ever going to use this? And I just study. Might as well, because I paid $2,000 for courses to kind of learn about this. And then once I got into some debt, once I got into a mortgage, bam, paid off, right? So that's why it's really important to study this stuff. And I always talk about the analogy of learn how to drive the car um, before you crash it. But so many people want to just drive and then crash. And this is true with real estate investing as well. I'm going to crash the car and then, oh, maybe I should learn how to drive. And this is what we do with our finances, right? All right, so we're going to have a line of credit available to us, and unlike the average American, for the Velocity Banker, the line of credit is going to be what we call our main operating account. For the average American, it's their checking account that's their main operating account. In fact, if I were to create a Velocity Banking cult, the thing that I would have you recite every single day, the moment you wake up, is that my line of credit is my main operating account. Too many people, when their checking or savings account statement comes out, they got money in it. And what we're going to do is, even if though we have the same income, our savings or our balance in our checking and savings is pretty much going to go to zero, right? You look at my savings accounts, well, I don't even have any. Well, I do, but I don't even really use it. But you look at the checking account statement after every single month, I don't got money in it. And people freak out like, don't you have 3 to 6 months of savings? I'm like, yeah, right. I'm going to apply all my money into debt with the help of a line of credit. And so we're going to go ahead and do that right now. And let's just assume for today's demonstration, we got a $50,000 line of credit, right? 50,000. Now I get it, for a lot of, when you first see this, for a lot of people, this seems out of reach, but here's the thing, you got to learn about credit, like learn about what the banks are looking for, right? And I don't guarantee you that you're going to get these types of lines, but again, the biggest secret that people don't know is that banks don't lend money to people who need it, right? You understand that, then you'll know how to get credit. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this, and then we're going to get the next month, right? So we got to do our calculations. Now, here's the thing. Instead of savings, we have something called cash flow, and people get really tripped up by this, right? But we have an extra step of moving some of our debt to the line of credit and make it our main operating account. And the easiest debt to start off with is credit cards. So if you sum up, this is $42,000 of credit card debt. And a lot of people would freak out about that, $42,000. And guess what? This goes to zero, and then this goes to zero, and then now we went from 1,300 to 2,700 in one swoop. We didn't need to make more money. We just had a line of credit available, and we increased our cash flow, and we did the thing that most people don't do, which is have savings, right? Because our line of credit is our new savings account. So whatever's the difference between the available limit and the balance, that's our new savings account, right? And so we're going to put all of our money into debt. And the actual strategy is we're going to put our entire $6,000, an entire paycheck, into that line of credit, and then we're going to take our expenses out of the line of credit. And then after every single month, the balance is going to go down by 2,700 plus interest, right? So let's go ahead and do this and do the calculations that I always show you. So previous month's balance plus previous month's interest minus our cash flow is our new balance, 2726. 0.33, and then our interest is going to be based on the average daily balance, and then we multiply it by the interest rate, which is 0.15. So people might see 15% interest rate and freak out about that, but we're good, especially since we're moving like 20-30% credit cards into the 15% line of credit. This is an obvious no-brainer, right? But when it comes to amortized loans with lower interest rates, people tend to avoid the higher interest rates, but this is how we kind of have to think about it, is that the higher interest rates means easier access to our money, right? And so if we can take advantage of that easier access to money and offset the higher interest rates with our increased cash flow, then no biggie, right? Because again, I was talking to a nurse yesterday, and she said she had savings. It's like, well, if you know you have savings, like I don't even know how much savings she has, but if you have savings and you know you have debt, why haven't you applied all your savings to your debt? If the savings is not making any money and we're assuming like 0.001% interest. If you have all that savings, right, and you have debt that's being charged at 3 to 6%, why is that savings idle? And the reason that people cannot apply their savings, why they need 3 to 6 months of savings, is because they've been conditioned by society that that's your emergency fund, not your line of credit, and so they can't actively apply all of their money to debt, right? So now let's go in here and let's 18 months we paid off that credit card, and so 18 months at 42K. So 18 months, 42K. All right, and then we're going to go ahead and do this. And so now let's recalculate how much balance of the current balance, the auto loan, and the mortgage. Now, luckily, I have this loan calculator that does it for you. You put in the month here, it'll tell you the current balance, right? So if 1 month has passed, then you could see what the latest balance is and how much interest you paid in total. Isn't that cool? Excel has these functions to help you figure that out. FV, future value, right? Total interest. Cumulative interest payment. It's not this word, you dirty mind. Anyways, let's go ahead and take this balance, right? Take this and then move it. So this is the current auto loan balance, and move it into the line of credit. Now, you might be asking, why do we move that auto loan balance and not attack the mortgage? Well, if we're solely thinking in terms of cash flow, right? If I pay the 16 grand off, I'm getting $430 back in my cash flow. Whereas if I pay this $193,000 off, I'm only getting $840 of cash flow. Isn't that crazy? So I need to attack this auto loan first, this lower balance loan first, because look at how much cash flow I'm getting back for paying off that auto loan. Okay? And then so 16131.22. Okay, so now what I do is I move this auto loan into that line of credit, whatever balance I have, And then if you take a look here, you take a look at this auto loan, guess what happens here? Oh my goodness, this goes to zero. And now we're over $3,000 of cash flow. $3,000. Oh my goodness. All right, let's go ahead and now rewrite our cash flow for the next month. So let's go ahead and do this. So now for this, we just got to modify the formula to 3156.79, right? And then now in 23 months, we got the sucker paid off. And the reason I'm saying sucker is because I've been on a Marlon Wayans movie binge, and I don't know if you remember that old movie, I'm Gonna Get You Sucker. I have it in my queue to watch, so I'm gonna watch that soon. All right, so now it's 23 months, and then we got that auto loan paid off. Boy, that was so easy. So in less than 2 months, we got 2 credit cards and an auto loan paid off. Mind blown, right? And then how much is 42? So I think that would be 64K, 64K, right? And then our mortgage, okay, now that's the last one we want to pay off because it just gives us such little cash flow. And let me put delete this and delete this. Actually, okay. So okay, so such little cash flow. And then what's the current balance after 23 months? And look at how much interest we paid. 11 grand. Yet we only paid about 9 grand in principal, or less than 9 grand. What a ripoff, even at 3%. Okay, so let's take a look right here. And so you might be thinking, we only have a $50,000 line of credit, but the balance is more than $50,000. Do we need to use the whole line of credit? No. And in fact, if we actually did replace this balance with a line of credit, I almost guarantee it's not going to work out because we get such little cash flow for moving a 3% loan into a 15% line of credit. And every time I do these demonstrations, right, uh, you know, with replacing the mortgage, especially at higher interest rates, you pay so much interest. In fact, and I think in this scenario, we're actually going to pay more interest than we would if we just gone to just paid the 30-year mortgage as is, right? And so let me go ahead and do this and open this velocity banking calculator. And I'm going to go in here, right? Oh, wrong window. Okay, so I'm just going to type in some numbers, and this is from Renatus, right? So this is where I originally learned velocity banking from. And I'm going to put my Ty Lopez style ad here, where remember where he talks about here in my garage and just points to a Lamborghini, and then he says like, oh, you know what's better than the Lamborghini? Knowledge, right? So I'm going to do that here, where if you're interested in learning velocity banking, and not only velocity banking, all this other stuff, and increase your knowledge, why not learn from Renatus? Because if you just learned this about, registered 8 years ago, you probably already been debt free by now. Maybe, I don't know. All right, so now let's go ahead and do this. What is the original balance of that loan? Definitely not 300,000. So 200,000. And then the current balance is 191,885.29. So 191,885.29 at 3%. And the balance is, or I'm not the balance, a payment is 843.21. 843.21. Okay. All right. So now what we got to do is just, I'll say 15%. Okay, and then write the appropriate income and expenses. So what are my expenses? Ooh, right, it's $2,000. So everything except for the loan we're trying to pay off, $2,000. And then what is our income? Income is $6,000, so pretty good. That's actually 100 grand a year, right? So that's two $50,000 incomes. Now, here's the thing. Here's what I want to show you. Now, you may have heard on the internet that, oh, you should just replace your mortgage to first lien HELOC or whatever. But let's say your HELOC or your interest rate for that line of credit was 15%. And let me go ahead and copy this right here. Okay. Whoopsie, I screwed up. All right. Guess what happens here? You see this parentheses? That means that's negative interest. So if you actually replace your mortgage with the home equity line of credit, you actually pay it off earlier, 6.2 years, but you pay more interest. You pay 12 grand more interest. And I don't know about you, but if I were the bank, I'd actually like that because, the reason I made it 30 years is because your payment is spread out And that's like the bank's way of getting more interest. But hey, if you're able to move this in a 15% line of credit and pay me even more in 6 years than what I thought I'd get in 30, yeah, go for it, right? But if we use what we call the chunking method, which is just moving, chopping up your loan into pieces into the line of credit, and then as a rule of thumb, just use your paycheck, monthly paycheck. So let's say $6,000, chop it up into $6,000 pieces. Guess what happens here? 4.4 years and 15 grand of interest, right? And I think too many people emphasize, oh, pay off your mortgage with velocity banking. But here's the thing that we have to understand, that with velocity banking, our mortgage is like the least important thing because it sucks up the least amount of cash flow. But we do have to pay it off early, because if we don't, that little payment is just accruing interest, right? Or yeah, we just pay a lot of interest over 30 years, 92 grand, even though it's a 3% loan. Okay, so we don't want to pay that. I'd rather pay 15 grand, have an easy way to pay it off, dump all my money into a line of credit, rinse and repeat over and over again, and we pay it off in 4.4 years, right? So let's go ahead and go to the other spreadsheet right here. And then now this is going to be 4.4 years. So it's actually 4.4 plus 23 divided by 12. And then that's going to be 6.32 years. 6.32 years. And whew, how much is that? So that's 264K of debt free in 6.32 years, right? Dang. I mean, let me just actually zoom in on this, right? Let me zoom in, and I'm taking a look at this. It's like, bro, if you had known this 6 years ago and you were in this situation, you would have been completely debt free, and you would have $4,000 just sitting in your savings account every month, and then you would have what I call rich people problems, right? You ever deal with rich people who have a lot of money in their checking or savings? I know an older Korean guy who has like millions of dollars in his checking account, has 5 commercial properties, and he was like, "Yeah, I'll lend you money. You get a deal." I'm like, "Shoot, I need to get my own deals. I don't have deals that are in millions of dollars, right?" Like, but again, that's when we have, we again, we don't get rid of our problems. We graduate our problems, right? So we're gonna have rich people problems now. So that's where you might be if you paid it off under, we'll say, 7 years. Okay. But yeah, so that's it for this morning. Again, this is a velocity banking cult, so every morning you wake up, always chant, the line of credit is my main operating account. No, I'm just kidding. Don't do that. Or maybe you could if it helps you learn this stuff better. But yeah, Karina Land to Mentorship. So it's just another happy, beautiful Wednesday. Have a great day, and we will speak next time.